In a quiet village called Elmswood, surrounded by rolling green hills and golden sunsets, lived a man named Daniel. Daniel was known throughout the village, but not for anything admirable. He was kind-hearted, yes, but he had one habit that slowly ruined his life. He always said, "I'll do it later." That word became his comfort and his biggest enemy. He delayed everything, his work, his dreams, his responsibilities, while others in the village moved forward, built their lives and achieved their goals. Daniel stayed exactly where he was, not because he lacked talent, but because he lacked urgency. His family often warned him. His friends tried to motivate him, but Daniel would just smile and say, "Relax, there's still time." One afternoon, something unusual happened. A wise traveler arrived in Elmswood, and people said he had journeyed across kingdoms, gathering knowledge and understanding the secrets of life. Villagers gathered around him, listening carefully to his words. Daniel, feeling lost and left behind in life, thought to himself, "Maybe this man can help me." So after everyone left, Daniel approached him. With a heavy heart, he said, "Sir, I feel like I'm failing at life. Everyone around me is moving forward, but I'm stuck. I want to change, but I don't know how." The wise man looked at him gently and said, "My friend, your problem is not lack of ability. It is your relationship with time." Daniel lowered his eyes. The wise man continued, "Let me tell you a story. Many years ago, there lived a powerful king. He was generous and kind, loved by all his people. One day, he met an old acquaintance, someone he once studied with. But life had not been kind to that man. He was poor, jobless, and constantly blaming the world for his failures. The king felt pity for him, so he made him an offer. "Before sunset today," the king said, "you may take as much gold and treasure from my palace as you wish. Whatever you collect will be yours." Daniel's eyes widened as he listened. The man was overjoyed. He rushed home to tell his wife. She urged him, "Go now, don't waste a second." But the man said, "Let me eat first. I have plenty of time." He ate slowly, without urgency. After eating, he felt sleepy. Just a short nap, he thought. Then I'll go. But his short nap turned into a deep sleep. When he woke up, the sun had already moved far across the sky. Still, he wasn't worried. He grabbed some sacks and began walking toward the palace, but the heat was strong, and the road felt long, so he stopped under a tree. "Just a little rest," he said. The cool breeze touched his face, and within moments, he fell asleep again. When he finally woke up, the sky had changed. The sun had set. Panicked, he ran as fast as he could to the palace, but when he arrived, the gates were closed. His chance was gone, not because life was unfair, but because he delayed again and again. And this time, delay cost him everything. The wise man stopped speaking. Silence filled the air. Daniel stood still, his heart heavy. For the first time in his life, he truly understood. Time doesn't wait. Opportunity doesn't knock twice, and later is often too late. With tears in his eyes, Daniel said softly, "I see it now. I've been wasting my life." The wise man nodded. "Then don't waste another moment." From that day on, Daniel changed. He stopped saying later. He started taking action. Small steps at first, but consistent ones. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Slowly, his life began to transform. He became disciplined, focused, respected, and most importantly, he became proud of himself because he finally learned the truth. Time is more valuable than gold, Once it's gone, it never comes back. So if you are listening to this right now, ask yourself, what are you delaying? What dreams are you postponing? Because every moment you waste is an opportunity you may never get back. Value your time, and time will value you. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment. More inspiring stories are coming your way. Until then, stay patient, stay grateful, and keep moving forward. Why is it that when life becomes the hardest, faith is often the first thing we begin to lose? When problems refuse to stop, when prayers feel like they disappear into silence, when everything we once depended on slowly fades away, it becomes easy to believe that maybe God is no longer listening. But sometimes, the moment when faith feels the weakest is exactly when it is being tested the most. This is the story of Ibrahim, and the quiet way his faith returned when he least expected it. Ibrahim had spent most of his life in a small village called Karuma. It was a peaceful place, dusty roads, familiar faces, and simple living. Everyone knew everyone. Life was never perfect, but it was steady. Years later, his daughter moved abroad with her husband. After much persuasion, Ibrahim decided to join them in a faraway country, and everything there felt unfamiliar. The language sounded strange. The cold weather cut through his skin. Even the food felt distant from what he once knew. But Ibrahim didn't complain. He was happy because he was with family. He spent his days helping around the house, fixing small things, cooking simple meals, and most importantly, taking care of his grandson, Daniel. Life felt quiet, but full. Then one year, everything changed. In a sudden and unexpected turn of life, Ibrahim lost both his daughter and her husband in a tragic accident. The home that once echoed with laughter fell into a painful silence. And just like that, Ibrahim was left alone with one responsibility: Daniel. Days became heavy. Bills began to pile up. The savings disappeared quickly. And Ibrahim realized something he had never imagined he would have to start over. At his age, in a country that still didn't feel like home. He found small jobs wherever he could, fixing broken fences, cleaning yards, carrying loads. Every morning he left early. Every night he returned exhausted, but he kept going because someone depended on him. There was a small shelf in the living room. On it sat a worn-out holy book and a small lamp. Back in Karuma, Ibrahim used to pray every evening without fail. But now, the lamp stayed unlit. Some nights he sat there, staring at it, not praying, not speaking, just silent. His faith had grown tired. One night, after Daniel had fallen asleep, Ibrahim sat alone again. His heart felt heavy. For the first time in weeks, he whispered softly, "God, I don't understand why this happened, but please just watch over this boy." Give him a better future than this. He didn't expect an answer. He didn't feel peace. He simply went to sleep. The next day, while working in a neighborhood, Ibrahim noticed an older man struggling outside his home. The man looked weak, barely able to stand. Without hesitation, Ibrahim rushed to help him inside. He brought water, prepared a simple meal from what was available, and stayed until the man felt better. Before leaving, the man thanked him and offered some money. Ibrahim accepted it humbly, but in his heart he felt he had only done what was right. He never expected to see him again. But a few days later, there was a knock on his door. Ibrahim opened it, and there stood the same man, smiling gently. "I hope I'm not disturbing," he said. But I can't stop thinking about that meal you made." Ibrahim chuckled softly and invited him in. As Daniel laughed nearby, Ibrahim cooked again. For the first time in a long while, the house felt warm, alive. Before leaving, the man looked around, then spoke carefully. "I would like to help you. I can support Daniel's education." Ibrahim paused, then shook his head. "No, I cannot accept that." The man didn't argue. He simply smiled and left. A few days later, there was another knock. This time, Ibrahim stepped outside and froze. Parked in front of his house was a small food cart. The man stood beside it. "This is not charity," he said calmly. "This is a loan. You cook with heart. Start selling your food. When you earn, you can pay me back." Ibrahim hesitated. "What if no one comes?" he asked quietly. The man smiled. People always return to what feels genuine." And so, Ibrahim began. At first, only a few customers came, then more and more. Soon, the small food cart became known across the neighborhood, not just for the food, but for the warmth Ibrahim served with it. People came back again and again, not just to eat, but to feel something real. One evening, Ibrahim stood beside his cart, watching Daniel laugh as he spoke with the man who had helped them. For a moment, everything felt still. Then slowly, Ibrahim looked up. His eyes softened, and for the first time in a long while, he smiled. Quietly, he whispered, "Thank you." Sometimes life becomes so difficult that faith begins to slip away. You stop praying, you stop believing. You start wondering if anyone is listening at all. But when life becomes harder, don't lose your faith. Hold on tighter. Because faith doesn't always remove the storm, but it gives you strength to walk through it. And sometimes, the answer to your prayer doesn't come as a miracle, but as a person, a stranger, a moment, a second chance. So if you are going through a dark time right now, remember this: the night may feel endless, but morning always comes. No darkness lasts forever. Hold on, just a little longer, because the light you're waiting for may already be on its way. Long ago, in a beautiful and wealthy kingdom, there lived a great king. People admired his power, his riches, and his wisdom. But the true pride of his kingdom was a magnificent temple that stood in the center of the city. It was so sacred and famous that travelers journeyed for weeks, sometimes months, just to pray there. And every single morning before the sun fully rose, the king himself would walk to the temple. He would bow his head, close his eyes, and pray with deep devotion. But something always caught his attention as he walked down the temple steps. Two beggars. They sat there every day, one on the left side of the stairs and one on the right. The beggar on the left would lift his hands to the sky and say softly, "Dear God, you have blessed the king with so much. Please bless me a little too." But the beggar on the right would look directly at the king and say, "Oh, mighty king, God has given you so much wealth. Please share a little with me." This happened every day, every single morning. At first, the king ignored them. But one afternoon, while sitting quietly in his royal chamber, something about those two voices returned to his mind. He slowly smiled. "Interesting," the king said. "Both are asking for help, but their faith is in different places. One trusts God, the other trusts me." So the king called his minister. "Tomorrow," the king said, "I will be traveling outside the kingdom." The minister bowed. "The beggar on the right always asks me for help," the king continued. "While I'm gone, I want you to give him something in my name." The minister listened carefully. "Oh, prepare a bowl of sweet rice pudding," the king said, "and hide gold coins at the bottom of it." The minister's eyes widened. "Yes, your majesty." "Give it to him," the king said. "His life will change forever." The next morning, the minister did exactly as he was told. He prepared the sweet pudding, hid several gold coins underneath, and carried it to the temple. He walked up to the beggar on the right. "You always ask the king to share his blessings with you," the minister said. "Today, the king has sent this for you." The beggar's eyes sparkled with excitement. "Finally," he whispered with joy. "The king heard me." He grabbed the bowl and began eating quickly, proudly. As he ate, he glanced at the other beggar and laughed. "Look at this, royal food food, he said. You will never taste something like this." He continued eating greedily, spoon after spoon. But halfway through, he became full. Carelessly, he pushed the bowl toward the other beggar. "Here," he said arrogantly, "take the rest. This is probably the closest you'll ever get to eating like a king." The beggar on the left simply smiled, a quiet, peaceful smile. "Thank you," he said gently. He took the bowl and went home. That evening, in his small, simple home, he began eating the pudding slowly, one spoon, then another. And suddenly, his spoon hit something hard. Confused, he looked down. Something was shining at the bottom of the bowl. Gold coins. His hands started shaking. His eyes filled with tears. In that moment, he realized something powerful. God had answered his prayers. From that day on, he never begged again. But every morning, he still came to the temple, not to ask for anything, only to say you. Days later, the king returned to the kingdom and went back to the temple as usual. But when he looked at the stairs, something surprised him. The beggar who used to sit on the left was now standing happily, praying with gratitude. But the one on the right was still there, still begging, still waiting. Confused, the king asked what had happened. After hearing the story, the king took a deep breath and walked. Then he said something the entire kingdom would never forget. "The other man always said, 'Oh God, bless me.' But you said, 'Oh King, help me.'" The king paused. "I sent the blessing for you, but it reached the one whose faith was in God." Silence filled the temple step. And then the king's one final truth. What is truly meant for you will always find its way to you. No person can block, no situation can stop it, and no mistake can steal it. Because when God decides to bless someone, that blessing never gets lost. It always finds the right person. So never lose faith, even when life looks unfair, even when others seem ahead of you, even when nothing makes sense. Because what is truly yours is already on its way. And when it arrives, nothing in this world will be able to stop it. The Kingdom of Eldoria. Secrets and Shadows, 1670s. After the clever defense against the neighboring invaders, Eldoria thrived. The city's crystal towers reflected the sunlight like prisms, and the river sparkled with colors unseen in any other land. But not all in the kingdom celebrated in peace. In the shadows of the marble streets, murmurs of betrayal began to grow. Misty morning, a stranger appeared at the palace gates. Leora, a wandering scholar from a distant desert land, whose knowledge of ancient languages and hidden symbols rivaled even the queen's own. She carried an ornate box carved with celestial maps and strange glyphs. Leora requested audience with Queen Althea, claiming she held secrets about Eldoria's past, a prophecy that foretold both glory and disaster. The queen, ever curious, welcomed her. In the candlelit chambers of the palace, Leora revealed a hidden truth. Eldoria had once been built over a network of underground rivers that connected to sacred mountains beyond the kingdom's borders. If the knowledge of these waterways fell into the wrong hands, it could shift the balance of power in the entire region. Meanwhile, not all of Eldoria's nobles were loyal. Lord Malric, a once trusted duke, sought the hidden magic of the palace library. He believed the queen's reliance on strategy over brute force made her weak. In secret, he gathered mercenaries and foreign spies, plotting to seize the enchanted scrolls and claim the kingdom for himself. But Queen Althea, guided by intuition and Leora's knowledge, sensed the unrest. She devised subtle tests. A grand masquerade ball where masks concealed faces but revealed intentions. There, riddles were whispered through music, and each noble's response was observed. Those loyal remained, those treacherous were quietly exposed, their plans unraveling like a tapestry. The Festival of the River Lights. In honor of Eldoria's victory over its enemies, the Queen instituted the Festival of River Lights, where floating lanterns drifted down the Sapphire River, carrying the hopes, dreams, and wishes of every citizen. During the festival, Sir Kale discovered that some lanterns contained secret messages, coded warnings from rebels still loyal to Lord Malric. This revelation sparked a tense game of cat and mouse, with the palace guards navigating the city's labyrinthine alleys to protect the kingdom. the hidden library, a labyrinth of knowledge and ancient magic. Queen Althea, Sir Kale, and Leora descended into its depths, facing trials that tested intellect, morality, and courage. One chamber posed a riddle. What is stronger than the sword but cannot be seen, heavier than gold but cannot be held? Only by combining wisdom, intuition, and compassion could they advance, proving that true power was not conquest, but understanding. Lord Malric eventually launched his attack under the cover of a stormy night. But Eldoria was ready. Using illusions, traps, and the enchanted waterways revealed by Leora, the queen outmaneuvered the rebels. Lightning reflected off the crystal towers, and the river itself seemed alive, guiding the loyal forces while confusing the invaders. In a final confrontation in the throne room, Queen Althea faced Lord Malric alone. She did not fight with weapons, but with words and insight, exposing his greed and fear to the court. Humiliated and defeated, he fled, leaving Eldoria's people awed by the Queen's brilliance. Legacy of Eldoria peace returned, but Eldoria was forever changed. The people learned that strength came not from armies or wealth, but from knowledge, unity, and the courage to act wisely. The Queen commissioned chronicles of the events to teach future generations the value of intellect over force and wisdom over fear. Even centuries later, travelers say the crystal towers still catch the first light of dawn. The river sings at night, and the whispers of Queen Althea's poetry can be heard in the gardens, a reminder that a kingdom's soul is built not just of walls and gold, but of heart, mind, and courage. The hidden treasure of Mateo. Once upon a time, in a quiet village nestled between green hills and golden fields in Peru, there lived a man named Mateo. Everyone in the village knew Mateo for one reason. He was the most miserly man anyone had ever met. While the villagers shared meals during festivals and helped one another during difficult times, Mateo did something very different. He counted his coins again and again, every single day. Mateo had boxes filled with money hidden everywhere. Some were buried in his garden, others were tucked inside the walls of his house. A few were hidden beneath the loose boards under his bed. Every night before sleeping, he checked them carefully, making sure none were missing. But despite all his wealth, Mateo lived like a man with nothing. He wore the same faded clothes year after year, and his meals were simple and often barely enough to keep him strong. When rain leaked through his roof during the stormy season, he simply placed old pots and bowls under the drops instead of repairing the house. "Why spend money fixing the roof?" Mateo would say with a shrug. "The bowls catch the water just fine." His neighbors often shook their heads with pity. One afternoon, his neighbor Isabella stopped by and asked him gently, "Mateo, what is the use of all your money if you live like this?" Mateo only smiled and tapped the pouch hanging from his belt. "One day," he said proudly, "I will be the richest man in this village. Then everyone will understand why I saved every coin." Years passed. Mateo's money kept growing, but something else was happening at the same time. His health was slowly fading. The sleeping on the cold floor made his back stiff and bent. Working by weak candlelight made his eyes ache and blur. His poor meals made him weak and tired. Still, he refused to spend a single coin. Then one day, a traveler arrived in the village. His name was Diego. Diego was young, cheerful, and full of life. Though he did not look rich, he carried something far more valuable: curiosity and determination. All he owned was a small bag, a notebook, and a wooden flute. He rented a small room near Mateo's house. Every morning, Mateo watched Diego with disapproval. The young man bought fresh fruit, warm bread, and milk from the market. "Such waste," Mateo muttered. "Spending money on luxuries." But Mateo soon noticed something interesting. Diego also bought books. Every evening he sat outside reading. He purchased tools and practiced building small furniture. He bought materials to learn pottery. Sometimes he even paid the village elders to teach him about farming and trade. One day, Mateo could no longer hold his curiosity. "Why do you waste so much money on these things?" he asked. Diego smiled kindly. "I'm not wasting money, sir. I'm investing in myself." Mateo frowned. "What does that even mean?" Diego explained calmly. "Every book makes me wiser. Every skill makes me more useful. Every healthy meal gives me strength to work harder and think clearly. The best investment anyone can make is in themselves." Mateo laughed. "Foolish thinking. The best investment is saving money and protecting it." Diego looked at him thoughtfully. "But what good is money if you are too weak to enjoy it? What good is wealth if you have no knowledge to grow it? What good are coins if they only sit in the dark?" Mateo waved him away and returned to counting his coins. Months went by. Slowly, Diego's efforts began to show results. Because he could read and write well, the village council hired him to help manage records. Because he had learned carpentry, villagers asked him to repair doors and tables. Because he understood herbs, people came to him for help when they were sick. And when Diego played his flute during village celebrations, everyone gathered to listen. Through these gatherings, he made friends and built strong connections. His life was growing brighter every day. Meanwhile, Mateo's life was growing harder. One evening, Mateo fell terribly ill. A strong fever left him weak and trembling in his dark, damp house. The village doctor visited and looked around with concern. "Mateo," the doctor said, "you need medicine, good food, and this house must be repaired. The damp air is making you worse." Mateo swallowed weakly. "How much will it cost?" "About 400 coins," Mateo gasped. 400 coins? Impossible! He refused the treatment. But his illness only grew worse. After weeks of suffering, he finally had no choice but to pay for the medicine and repairs, and by then, it cost even more. As Mateo slowly recovered, he spent long days sitting by the window, watching the village outside. And every day he saw Diego walking confidently through life, healthy, skilled, respected. One evening, Diego knocked on his door carrying a bowl of warm soup. "I heard you were sick," Diego said. "I made this for you." Mateo felt tears fill his eyes. This young man, whom he had once mocked, was now showing him kindness. "Diego," he said quietly, "I think I have been wrong all my life." Diego sat beside him. "You were not wrong," he said gently. "You just forgot something important." "What did I forget?" "You forgot that you are your greatest treasure." Mateo listened carefully. "Money can disappear," Diego continued, "but your health, your knowledge, and your skills, they stay with you. They help you grow, earn, and live happily." Mateo looked down at his trembling hands. "Is it too late for me?" Diego smiled warmly. "It is never too late to begin." And from that day forward, Mateo changed. He repaired his house properly. He began eating healthy food. He bought glasses so his eyes would not strain. He even asked Diego to teach him how to read and write, something he had never learned before. Slowly, something wonderful happened. Mateo became stronger. He discovered the joy of learning. He learned simple carpentry and began helping neighbors fix small things. For the first time in years, he made friends and laughed with people. His money was no longer buried in the ground. It was helping him live a better life. Within a year, Matteo had transformed. He still saved money, but now he understood balance. One evening, Matteo and Diego stood together watching the sunset paint the sky with gold and orange. "Thank you," Matteo said softly. "You taught me the most valuable lesson in life." Diego smiled. "What lesson is that?" Matteo looked at the horizon and said, "The greatest treasure is not money hidden in boxes. It is investing in ourselves, our health, our mind, our skills, and our happiness." And for the first time in many years, Matteo smiled a smile that came from deep within his heart, a smile of true wealth.